Coming up next on the Jeff Crilley Show, we're going to talk to a legal eagle, one of Dallas's best, and her claim to fame is that she actually worked with Nunnally, one of her first clients. We'll hear all about that next on the Jeff Crilley Show.
Many are predicting that the worst is yet to come, which is unfortunate, said one person here. Until now, they've enjoyed the reputation of being the nation's I Spies.
Watched a burglar in his home this morning by webcam.
As a journalist of over 25 years, stories are what make my world turn.
Reporting live from the Dallas newsroom tonight, Jeff Crilley, Fox 4 News.
But in 2008, I took the jump from my familiar life and started a PR firm from my home.
We're talking about anyone with a camcorder like the one I'm using becomes a television network.
We started slowly growing the company, and we now have over 100 clients, and we've branched into the world of live digital broadcasting. I now own 8 different TV studios and have a huge team, and the stories that I now get to share are sometimes the most important of my life. Life has a funny way of coming around full circle. This is the Jeff Crilley Show.
Okay, I got to tell you, I'm a little starstruck just because of the guest in studio today. She hangs around Hollywood stars, and in fact, her first client was Nelly, the artist. That's pretty amazing. Danica Mathis joins me in studio. She's a partner with Bell Nunnally. Thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, Jeff.
Are you going to tell the Nelly story?
Okay, well, one of my first clients right out of law school was a rapper you may have heard of named Nelly, and he was just a fascinating guy to work with because he was a multi-platinum selling artist back when records were still sold instead of just singles. And so because of his fame and his success in the music industry, he really got to do a lot of really neat things, like have a clothing line and be involved in restaurants and have all these interesting endorsements and tours and other people he worked with and collaborations with other artists. And so he, he was an individual and he was his own brand, but he really was an enterprise, and he diversified his musical success into many other areas, which is pretty smart.
Nice guy, down to earth.
Totally nice guy. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, one of the areas that you're passionate about is advertising law, and I didn't even think about it, but yeah, there are a lot of rules and regulations that go along with social media and what you can put out there. And you were telling me off camera that you kind of creep on your clients' social media just to make sure they're not doing anything on Facebook that would violate the rules, right?
Definitely. Well, I like to follow my clients because my clients do some really interesting things usually. Sure. They're very creative folks, and marketing is a wide variety. Marketing and advertising, there's a wide variety of options there, and social media has made it easy and cheap to do that. So running contests and sweepstakes and other promotions, especially via social media and otherwise online, is super easy to do, but there are a lot of details and potential pitfalls and potential lawsuits that if you're not familiar with all of the regulations, it's not as easy as it may look to the person entering the contest. Yeah. So I just make sure that they're following all the social media guidelines for that, as well as the laws related to it, and try to keep them out of trouble.
Yeah. So I mean, a small business decides, hey, we're going to do a contest, we're going to give away a free whatever. They can't just post it and go, because you could actually be violating the law. Is that right?
Definitely. And depending on where you're running the contest and who's eligible to enter, there are certain states that require you to register or actually post a bond of a certain amount of money, depending on the prize amounts. And so there's a lot of details that just a regular business owner may not have any clue about. And because you're online and social media, potentially anyone, even in the world, if you don't limit it with the right rules, could enter the contest, and you could have some issues.
Okay, we're going to put up an article that you wrote for the Dallas Business Journal, and it talks about influencer marketing. So talk about this article and what inspired you to write it.
Yeah, well, influencer marketing is the hot thing right now. I'm sure we're all very familiar with all the influencers out there who sometimes get paid a lot of money. Kim Kardashian is a great example. She's made a mint off of promoting products, and every post that they get paid for. But behind those deals, they're not just doing this because they love a product. Sometimes they do, and they tell you that. But if they do, Usually they are getting paid to do that, and if they do get paid or even get free product, they have to disclose that, or it has to be very obvious that they're getting something in return for their glowing recommendations. So I work with those folks, both the companies that hire them as well as the influencers who are working with companies, to make sure, again, they have guidelines so they're complying with the law, so they don't get in trouble, and the company they're working with doesn't get in trouble. And so consumers who may love this celebrity who's endorsing this product realizes that maybe the celebrity doesn't use this, even though they're supposed to under the law, and but maybe there's some other incentive besides just their pure love of a product, and it's giving them a little more information so they're not falsely swayed.
Yeah, do they have to put a disclaimer up there, say this person is being compensated for this?
Well, there are regulations that the Federal Trade Commission put out, some guidelines about, especially in social media, you can use specific hashtags like #ad or #sponsored. But you're supposed to disclose that, or it's supposed to be very obvious that you are working with a company. So you could say something like, I've partnered up with Coca-Cola to do this promotion. But that does have to be pretty obvious if you're, even if, say a blogger gets some free product from a company and they review it, they have to disclose that they got free product, even, because that's considered consideration for that. So there's some potential bias there.
I know another area you're passionate about is intellectual property, and we were talking about the idea of the famous Coming to America ripoff. Instead of McDonald's, it's McDowell's or something like that, and then he stole the golden arches. That doesn't happen in real life, does it?
That would be pretty tough to pull off in real life. McDonald's is obviously well known, not just in the U.S., but internationally, and they're pretty protective of their brand. And so in that situation, it'd be pretty obvious that that's really confusingly similar. And because McDonald's is so famous, they actually have extra protection for their trademark and other rights they have, because you say McDonald's and that's the first thing people think of. So they're extra special. They can't just, they can actually prevent someone from calling bicycles McDonald's potentially, even though they will never get into the bicycle business.
And they have a whole a firm of attorneys just waiting to jump on people who infringe their copyright, don't they?
They do. They've got a bunch of attorneys sitting in their corporate headquarters, and then they have a bunch of outside counsel that work with them all over the world, actually, to enforce those rights.
Yeah, I actually had a friend who started a marketing firm in Fort Worth, and they called it Float and Sting, and float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. And Muhammad Ali Enterprises came after him.
Yes,
that happens all the time, doesn't it?
It does, and it's a slippery slope. And people, I just had an advertiser, a client of mine was wanting to run a promotion for one of its clients, and it wanted to use something that a company is famous for using in a different industry. And I said, well, that is a problem, because they have a trademark registration for what you want to include in your ad, and because they're so well known, they can stop you from using it even though you're in a completely different industry.
Really?
So, those are things that's why advertising agencies and people doing their own advertising and marketing really need to be wary of, because, you think you're being clever and say, like, for example, if you use Nike's Just Do It, that's a problem, because Nike really has the monopoly on that in every industry.
So what happens if the celebrity hasn't thought to copyright it? Can you jump in there, like Matthew McConaughey famously says, all right. If I decided to do something with that, does Matthew have the, because he said it, or I have the right because I copyrighted it?
It depends, and that's a really good point. And that's why I love what I do, because it's very nuanced, and it's a very fact-specific area, and I live in the gray world, which is kind of fun because it keeps it interesting for me. But in that situation, Paris Hilton tried to trademark "That's Hot."
Right.
Donald Trump tried to trademark "You're fired," and you can't just own a phrase. You actually have to use it in connection with specific products or specific services. So unless you're using it as a brand for a T-shirt, not just as a logo on the T-shirt, but actually the label in the T-shirt, or to provide specific services, you can't necessarily stop somebody from doing that. But again, be very careful, because those people are savvy and they've got some really smart lawyers working with them typically, and they're on it, and so they're trying to do whatever they need to do to protect that, because they've made it marketable, basically.
Well, Danica is very busy. She's also a board chair for Big Thought. Let's go ahead and put that on the screen. Big Thought is a Dallas nonprofit. Tell us about the mission and ministry of this nonprofit.
Big Thought is such an incredible organization. We really we've been around for over 30 years now, and we work to really decrease the opportunity gap that exists, especially in Dallas, but really throughout the nation. We've been we've worked with a lot of other entities and companies and organizations nationally, and because we just do some groundbreaking work. We really take people from different places where they don't have the opportunities because of their circumstances that some other people do, and we give them creative outlets. We introduce them to the arts, we introduce them to music or painting or theater, and it really just changes their life because we're really trying to teach them not just to be creative, but also it's really social emotional learning that we're focusing on. And our goal and our mission is really to help these youths from disadvantaged communities and areas realize their best life and their purpose, whatever that might be, and kind of just open the door and give them opportunities and pathways to become whatever they want, and expose them to different areas that they may not be aware of.
And I applaud you for doing that, because I think this last year has been especially tough for young people with the pandemic. A lot of them are doing remote learning, and if they're already in a bad situation, they can go into a downward spiral, can't they?
Definitely. It's been a really challenging year, and Big Thought has really just, again, a leader in this area. They pivoted. Our organization is just so nimble, and it's pretty impressive because we have Dallas City of Learning, which is an amazing online platform that basically, especially in the summer, anyone can go to and find some fun and typically free or low-cost opportunities for kids all over the city. So we have some online experience, but never to the extent that we did. We do a lot of in-person learning, and it's hard to do theater on social media.
Sure. But
we've done some of those things online, and we've actually pitched in different areas that we don't typically get involved in, but we have a great network, and we've got some overlap with some of these entities, and so we've really made an impact even in this horrible time, and really tried to, because that learning curve has even gotten worse because there's so much slippage, because it's really hard to concentrate. I don't know if you've ever been on a Zoom meeting, but just imagine trying to learn. It's hard enough to do that in a classroom sometimes with everything else going on in your life. But to focus on a screen by yourself in your house, if you have internet access, which is another problem. So there are a lot of challenges. It's really brought some more disparities to light, and we've worked with the city and the state actually to really help make sure that everybody does have internet access, and it's very difficult for those realities to be realized. It really brought to light some things that we already knew were issues, but they were amplified during this time. So.
Danica Mathis, thank you for coming on the show. We're going to end by putting up the website. It's bellnunnally.com. Danica, thank you so much.
Thank you.
You bet. That's it for now. We'll see you next time.